So we have Cassidy Nolan, co-founder and managing member of Mach Hot Sauce. Thank you for coming on today.
Thank you for having me.
So first tell me what your time in the military, what you're like.
Yeah,
What did you do?
yeah. So I joined in 2008, right out of high school. And I was in until 2013. I did intelligence, was an intelligence specialist, so 0231, stationed at Camp Pendleton, 1st Marine Division G2. So I did division intelligence, did my training at Dam Neck, Virginia, and two deployments with 1st Marine Division, 2010 and 2012, Helmand Province. Was augmented with 1st LER to be part of their company, like what's called a click, a company level intel cell, and then was acting intelligence chief for a time at 3rd Amphibious Assault Battalion, basically right until I got out. So I was an accredited collections manager. I was the guy to help put ISR assets overhead for like drug interdiction ops. That was probably the biggest part of my job, was drug interdiction ops, because we were doing anything that we can to um take the in order to reduce kinetic attacks. It was deemed of like, well, let's take away their money. And how do we take away the insurgents' money? We need to take away the heroin, right? We need to take away the black tar heroin that is being processed in Afghanistan and then actually refined in like Pakistan or Iran. And a lot of counter IED operations. So we would put certain assets overhead to like find drug making, or not drug, well, we would do that too, but like bomb making plants or factories. Look out for IED emplacements, IED emplacers. So we were very successful at our job. And then I did just kind of like regular analytical work of, what does humans say, right? Like, so we're talking about passive interrogations, which isn't really the correct term. It's probably more along the lines of like tactical questioning is probably the better term. Because I think when people think of interrogation, either they think of something from Hollywood of like you're in a room with a light and a steel table and a steel chair, or they think of like Zero Dark 30 getting waterboarded. So there is other degrees of just, talking to people, right?
Yeah.
Um, so I did that and I really enjoyed my job. Loved the job. I loved doing intelligence. I loved getting access to the reports and what the United States was doing. I thought that that was pretty cool. Um, but I got married. I had a daughter who's now 11, and my wife and I have been together for 13 years. Um, it definitely put a huge strain where there wasn't, to me, like a big sense of, I didn't have a lot of agency over my direction. Um, where I really enjoyed staying on the West Coast, but if I were to re-enlist, there was a good chance I'd have to change duty stations and go to a different unit, and that is par for the course. Like that's how the military works. That it's a universal thing, and there's definitely a lot of things that I wanted to do, and I just didn't feel like I'd be able to do all of them if I stayed in. So I ended up getting out in 2013.
Okay. Um, and so what was your favorite duty station out of?
Um, I had the, I definitely had the privilege to be on the West Coast for, other than the times that I was deployed to Afghanistan, for all of it. And I enjoyed my original duty station of division intelligence. Um, But being the acting intelligence chief at 3rd Amphibious Assault Battalion was pretty sweet. Although that unit and the unit's like slogan is Yat Yas, which is if you ain't tracks, you ain't shit. But uh that unit was great because you're right on the water. I mean, just beachfront kind of real estate. And I do mean that because it's an amphibious assault battalion, they would have their tracked vehicles do their operations or training, like launching from the sand into the ocean and vice versa. So that was a really, really nice uh, unit simply because of the real estate, and the people were super nice too. I mean,
Well, a
that I
nice
worked with.
office space and
Yeah, yes,
they help.
yes, yeah. It was great. I mean, like every lunch just
Oh,
go out run in the sand kind of thing, like for a workout. It was great.
that's awesome. Yeah, I do miss SoCal.
Yeah.
Not Dam Neck though, huh?
Yeah, Damn Neck, I enjoyed something I really that I'd never experienced prior to that was I never experienced the mugginess, the humidity, right? I'm born and raised in California. I had been to New York in 1997. Prior to that, I'd never been to the East Coast. Um, and the humidity was pretty intense in Virginia, and that was a definitely a culture shock. But something I really liked in Virginia was the water was significantly warmer than here on the West Coast, right? Where it almost felt like a hot tub is an exaggeration, but you definitely didn't need a wetsuit, right? And here
Right.
on the West Coast, you for sure need a wetsuit. That was really nice. The sunset or the sunrises were beautiful, which I never experienced either, where the sun comes up over the water
Right.
instead of down it. And the thunderstorms.
Oh yeah.
We obviously do get thunderstorms here, but the fact that like it could churn on a dime in Virginia to me was like it was sunny this morning, no problem, super muggy, and then all of a sudden it's this huge downpour, and just the lightning is crossing the entire sky was I don't know, I'm a huge sucker for nature kind of thing, so I was like that looks, this is some awesome power that's over here, and um I'd only experienced that again in Afghanistan, where similar thing where just thunderstorms were pretty and lightning were pretty intense over there. It was kind of a trip. And obviously, there's Navy SEALs over there in Dam Neck. That was pretty cool to see them, and every female Marine just completely drooled over them. So it was cool. It was a really good time. Virginia Beach was super fun. Um, definitely had my fair share of underage drinking escapades.
Can mark that part out. Just
Yeah, yeah. As did everyone else.
kidding. Awesome. So how did you come up with the idea to start Mach 1 hot sauce?
I a few years ago, so I come from a culinary background. Like before I joined the service, I worked at restaurants. My father's a chef, and so I was never a stranger to the kitchen. And when I joined, I kind of hot sauce is a transitionary product where you don't really start thinking about hot sauce or buying hot sauce until you move out of your parents' house, you go to college, join the service, whatever. Like you don't buy hot sauce at 16. You start buying it at 18, right? Um, so when I was in, I started to realize that there was all these other hot sauces that I'd never heard of, never experienced, and kind of fell in love with hot sauce. And when I got out and I was going to college, my wife bought me this beer making kit, and I started to make my own beer. It's a lactobacillus fermentation process, and I started to make my own sourdough, and then I started to make my own hot sauce. And I was sitting at home having a breakfast sandwich one day, and I put hot sauce on this breakfast sandwich, and I said, I can make a better one. Like I just know in this moment right now, I deserve better. This breakfast sandwich deserves better. I can make a better one, and that has more flavor, the right amount of heat, because this was just like dry heat, no flavor, the right consistency, because there's so much vinegar. It just falls right off. It doesn't really stick to the food kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it just kind of became like a personal thing of like, I know I can make a better hot sauce than this. Like what are we doing? I had like too much time on my hands, and um made the hot sauce and kind of made like all these iterations and tweaks, and like over 30 in total, I think, before I landed on the one that we have today. And I knew I was going to go forward with the hot sauce when I was giving it out to friends and family, and guys in my jujitsu class were like, "Hey, I will buy the next batch from you." And it was like, I think I have something here. And I love aviation and like really human ingenuity, American ability to push the limits. Like our reach exceeds our grasp. And I just thought it would be cool to have the name Mach 1. And then it kind of created problems of like, is the whole company called Mach 1? Or like, are you going to have other hot sauces? Is it going to be Mach 1 something else? So then it became like, well, if we want to have a hotter hot sauce, we got to call it Mach 2 then, right? Because it'll be like twice as hot. And um, so yeah, now we have a Mach 1, a Mach 2, and a Mach 3. Yeah. So we have a mild, medium, and a hot. And the Mach 1 is a Bell X-1, which is the first plane that went Mach 1. And then we have the Mach 2, and it has a F-22 Raptor on it. And then we have the Mach 3, which is the SR-71 Blackbird, which was our first production plane that went Mach 3 at like a constant rate, or like it would cruise at Mach 3. And our Mach 2 for the Raptor, um uh it's we use a Scotch bonnet, and we use a yellow bell pepper, which mimics the indium oxide tin coating on the canopy of the F-22 Raptor. So I tried to like, I wanted to have like art imitate life kind of thing, or life imitate art.
Yeah.
And just use certain things as inspiration. And honestly, I think that we have some fantastic hot sauces. I really do, that are just perfectly balanced for flavor and heat. And the only feedback we ever get is like, hey, this is amazing, but can it get hotter? And it's like, yes, we can get hotter. And like the next one we want to do is like a Mach 5, and it'll have like a Carolina Reaper in it, which is an incredibly hot pepper. But one of the biggest traits about it is that it is like considered to have just a tremendous amount of like rich flavor and depth to it, compared to like pure capsaicin, where it's just like, this is burning my mouth and my sinuses. And
I
yeah, like I just want to lay down. That to me is that to me is like the worst thing. I there's a big appeal with hot sauce because it does create this sensation of pain, or the sensation of like panic or something. Kind of like when you ride a roller coaster or you watch a really scary movie, the same kind of like endorphins are released. So it's an adventure, right? It's like a thrill. And I think that's great, and I want to have that too, but I definitely don't want to do it where it's like, and now my meal is ruined, right? Like I just ruined this food that I spent all this time making, or I spent all this money making. I hate that. I hate that. It'll ruin it. It'll ruin your mouth. It might ruin your day. It might ruin tomorrow. So I really wanted to get away from all of that and make a hot sauce that can still give you that rush, but still be really well balanced and not overpower anything. And it's totally possible. You just have to use like real fresh ingredients and have a good balance between it.
nice. So, yeah, I know that's a common thing. My husband, one time we went, there's a hot sauce. I don't, have you been up towards, I think it's in Newport News or maybe a little bit further north. But there's an outlet mall, and I think it's like Hot Sauce Castle or something like that. Have you ever heard of that?
Nice. No, I haven't. No.
Well, maybe that's where you should sell to.
Yeah,
But
now I got to write it down.
so we went there because my husband has been known for eating things that are just insanely hot. We're talking
Okay.
1.5 million Scoville. Um,
Dang.
and he can do it, but he can't eat a raw pepper. It
Mm,
just absolutely tears up his stomach. And then I know he was on deployment one time and had like super sharp pains in his stomach, and it turned out he had an ulcer, and it was from eating all that hot sauce. But every time he goes on deployment, he brings on like at least one bottle of hot sauce that's over 1 million Scoville, and it's like some running joke that anytime somebody new comes on the ship, they're like, "Hey, try Will's hot sauce."
right. Yeah.
It's like, and it's awful. So we ended up, so I took him up to this hot sauce palace, and they had an extract that was, I think it was 6 million Scoville. And I mean, he had to sign a waiver, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was so horrible. Like he was able to tolerate it on his mouth. I'm pretty sure he's like burned all of whatever those sensors are on his tongue.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then he's just standing there, and then he's like, I gotta go. And he goes and he stands outside, and he's just pacing back and forth. And the guy that was working at the store is like, is he okay? And I was like, I don't know.
Right. Yeah.
It's just,
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's more of a, I don't know. I don't really know where his thought process is in that. I feel like he can't taste when it's like, wouldn't you rather it taste good? And he's like, yeah, but I also like the heat. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. It's like it's very much like a rite of passage, or he's pushing the limit each time, right? So he did that. And he's probably like at this point, and I'm speculating, uh, that's the hottest thing I've ever had. And now I know, like, my threshold is now all the way up here, you
Yep.
know,
Yeah.
and
But he'll
give it a
never do
couple
that.
years.
I don't think he's getting old.
Maybe he'll do an even hotter one though.
I don't know. And then I'm gonna have to take him to the hospital. I'm like,
Maybe, yeah,
I did ask him several times that day, do you need to go to the ER? Because
yeah. What do they even do? You know, it's not
I don't,
like they're not gonna pump your stomach. There's nothing, there's nothing to
maybe
pump.
have him eat charcoal or drink charcoal.
Hmm.
That's the only thing I could think of. Um, yeah.
Oh, well, you're right. Makes sense.
Um, all right, so moving past that. So what is your why, or what is your mission?
I believe in flavor. The biggest thing I think is being able to have, like change people's perception of what hot sauce can be and understand that it isn't like mutually exclusive between having something that is incredibly hot and no flavor and something that has good flavor, but there's no heat to it, right?
Yeah.
Uh, Definitely changing people's perception of what good hot sauce can be.
And then what do you love most about what you do?
The freedom. The
Yeah.
freedom, yeah. Yeah. I love talking to people. Like yesterday I did a couple sales calls, and I definitely get a huge kick of endorphins where I'll give a bottle of the hot sauces to a business owner, grocery store, restaurant, whatever. And the manager, owner, whoever, they'll try it and they'll say, wow, this is really good, and that's probably like to me one of the best feelings ever, because if you know everything that kind of took you to get to that point and you have a product, and this is just business, like product or service that you feel like is unrivaled or unparalleled, that is such a huge rush of like you made something that brings people joy and you know that it's really good and like you could get behind and or stand behind. Um, Incredibly rewarding experience. Being able to talk to people, driving around. I love the challenge of like just the cold calls, if you will, of like just going to a new place, and um that to me is super thrilling, and once again like a product that people enjoy. It isn't destructive, it isn't a gimmick, it isn't um a flash in the pan kind of thing. It's a really good hot sauce, has a lot of flavor, and at like label design and everything, there's depth to everything. So that to me has been a long time coming to get there. And when people try and enjoy it, it's super fun. But on a personal thing, I love the freedom that this position that I have, or me launching the business, provides. Where I'm, married, I have 4 kids. I don't feel like I have to consistently make some sort of blood sacrifice at work where I could be there for my kids for soccer practice or something. I would commute a lot at my previous job, and that got really tiring really fast. Where you're like, every day I'm sitting in the car for at least 2 hours just commuting, and I already spent 2 hours. Um, or I already spent, I'm going to spend an hour sitting in traffic just to drive, and then I'm going to spend uh, another couple hours at work sitting down, um, and I wouldn't always be forward facing. Um, I wouldn't always have an opportunity to talk to new people. You're always going to have to answer to somebody. Everybody answers to somebody, right? At some point, for sure. But more often than not, if things didn't go the way that I wanted, the only person I could blame is myself. And I'm much faster in making changes now than having to talk to a group or a team of people and making adjustments. So I feel like I could be far more efficient, far more productive. I have a greater sense of agency. I get to talk to people, once again, be forward facing, which is really important to me. Um, and I do a job that makes people happy. Like, that's, to me, that's the dream. So
Yeah, that's awesome. There's a lot of pros to what you do, and
yes,
the fact that you enjoy, because like that's the big thing I think with a lot of businesses is that a lot of people don't like talking to people, or they like their product, they love what they stand behind, but like to also have that personality that you enjoy people as well is super beneficial. So
yes,
you've got it all the way around where, it's just the whole concept and everything about it is enjoyable, which is, I mean, like that's a dream job, right? Um,
yes,
where it's not really even a job,
yes,
it's just a way of living and it's a part of you. Um,
yes.
Very happy for
Yeah,
you.
the elusive work-life balance that people will talk about on social media. Yeah, I very much get to have that right now. And I never feel like it's very good to set boundaries. But to me, it's just the way that my brain works and the person that I am, like, it's okay for me to think about, like, oh, I could optimize that Excel table, you know, or I should really set up a couple of emails and then put them on like a time delay, or any of those things. Like, those thoughts go through my mind when I worked at a regular job, a regular 9 to 5 white collar job, and then now as a business owner. So now I feel like it works better for me in this situation because it's only helping the business. And yeah, so it works out a lot better, for sure.
And having like selling something that you can get behind and that you honestly like have
Mhm.
towards makes it a lot easier too.
Yes, it does. Yes, I think that's probably the most important, right? And I challenge anybody to come up with something where it's like, and I used to work in nonprofits as a great example, right?
Yeah.
Oftentimes, you get paid minimum wage, right? And your hours are terrible, right? I mean, how many jobs exist out there where the real reward, the real fulfillment is the job itself, right? And um so I'm simply trying to bring that up as, like, that is what's going to get you through those downtimes. That's what's going to it's the mentality of doing something that you're passionate about. Like you said, it's no longer a job or a work or something. It's just something that you do. Um, that's probably um one of the more, yeah, it's definitely like a pillar for having like lasting success, because you're going to hit snags, right? You're going to hit low points, you're going to hit me mistakes and missteps. And if it's something that you really are passionate about, something that you really enjoy doing, you're going to try to find new ways to not, get yourself out of that position, not make the same mistake, whatever. You're going to learn from it, where it isn't sort of like world ending to you. You're going to find a way to like pivot around it. And um, that is, yeah, a very, very crucial thing. Do what you love.
So, yeah, there are definitely with starting a new business, or, there's always some sort of a learning curve and things you have to tweak because maybe something that worked before doesn't work later. What would you say is your biggest learning curve as far as this, you know, starting Mach 1 or maybe even where you're at right now?
Yeah. So I've gone to school for a long time for business. Starting as most military, separating veterans will go is they'll go to a community college. I got my associates in business. I went to an accredited business school. I went to the Haas School of Business. I even went and got my MBA. I went to graduate school for business. I worked at a lot of white collar jobs, Fortune 500 companies. And I really thought at one point, I was like, I don't know how much more of this business world like that I'm going to get that I don't know already. Right. And I think I just used all of those as an examples to not commit to launching my own business because I was always scared. I always felt like there was more things I need to know, more things I need to learn, more terminologies, more theoretical business, you know, um, like discussions or or situations. And the reality is that like the hardest step is taking the first one, and then everything else relies on you as a person. You could have a fantastic plan or strategy, but if you can't execute it, it doesn't matter, right? So that comes down to more of a personal thing. You have to have discipline. Hurdles for me were never any of like setting up a LLC or getting business insurance or getting a seller's permit or a business license or creating the recipe or none of that stuff. Like I always felt like it was just like, okay, I know I have to do that. So let me go do that. The biggest things were for me at least social media, because I never got on that wagon even back in 2006, 7. Like I had a MySpace to date myself, right? I had a MySpace and that was it. And then I had a Facebook and I did like some pretty stupid posts from time to time where you're like, you know, you feel like everything that you're posting is super important, you know. Um but I never got like on a Twitter or uh, Snapchat, or I we just recently had an Instagram, right? And we only have a couple hundred followers now. So I know that I missed that boat a long time ago, and it's like we're very much trying to play catch up to it. And the quality of the content, I mean, we're trying to deliver good content of like recipes to use with the hot sauce and places that you can find it at, but um we definitely have like an uphill battle. And I don't there and I've taken marketing classes at every iteration of my educational journey, and most classes don't have a book. And they don't have a book because the marketing marketplace changes year after year by a wide margin too.
Yeah.
It isn't like, it's a small little change here and there. It's like, nope, we don't use that anymore. We don't use that metric anymore, right? We don't use that platform anymore. Um, all of that changes so much that I do think you probably would benefit from having like a dedicated social media marketeer or agent or something. We're not in a position financially to bankroll that. So I have to put the hat on and I'm like, ooh, I don't know anything about this.
Yeah.
Um, so that has been a pretty big hurdle. Everything else to me is just like, okay, it's like any other project. I don't know, woodworking project, metal project, automobile project. You're like, okay, I have an idea of what I want to do in my head. Maybe I'm going to draw it out, right? And I'm going to get to work and I'm probably going to make mistakes along the way, but I know that I could just exactly.
Yeah.
So that's the mentality that I have. So there hasn't been any issues with that. But it'd be the
Well,
equivalent of like, I know I need to have, let's say you're working on a car, it's a car project, and you could change the tires but you really want to have this really nice custom seats made. And you thought, you could go pay somebody to make the seats, but you can't. So now you need to learn how to make seats yourselves for the car. And you don't even have all the tools. So you're kind of just hobbling it together. That's what it's like.
well, we can talk offline about the social media thing.
Sure, sure.
No, but that's awesome. You took the time to learn the business side. I feel like that's typically where a lot of people um struggle, but it is ever changing. I mean, Google, if you do Google Ads at all, the G4 tag just came out earlier this year. Um, and I know just from personal experience with my day job that and talking with Google, there's been like a lot of companies that are having a hard time adjusting. AI is a big thing right now. So it's just, it's ever changing on the whole social aspect, the marketing aspect, what worked 10 years ago. You know, maybe some of it, and I mean, what it's like fashion too, things make full circle because what was the norm 10 or 20 years ago is uncommon now. So if you were to all of a sudden do that, like maybe mailers, maybe that would be the new thing because not everybody's doing that anymore.
Right.
So,
That's true.
but then, there's that whole thing, MySpace. Oh my gosh. And MySpace does still exist, or at least it did a couple years
It
ago.
does.
Back on there.
Yeah.
And I was like,
Yeah.
not what I remember. Where are all the unicorns and the sparklies and the
Yeah. I feel like we should bring it back. MySpace just didn't keep up with the times, but something I really appreciated about it, and I say that now, is that it was completely bespoke. You could really customize your MySpace, right? That Facebook capitalized on of like getting rid of that. It no longer was that, right? Facebook was streamlined. Everyone had the same profile. You change the profile pic. You have your whatever your thoughts for the day, or I can't tagline, or I can't remember what it's called, headline. But MySpace used to be like you could change the background, you could play music when people get on your page, you could have your top friends, you could, when there's drama, because I had it in high school, people would switch their top friend, girlfriend, stuff like that. There would be like surveys that you would do that other people, it was ahead of its time for sure. It was very, you could be very detailed to reflect you as the person.
yeah, no, absolutely. I know. So like Instagram, I don't know if you've noticed, but they did a recent change. I don't know about the business pages because I haven't really been on that part a lot. But on
Mhm.
my personal one, you can go in there and pick a song and a quote for the day.
Oh,
And
really?
yeah, yep.
No, I did not know
It's a
that.
new thing. It's a new thing. I don't know if everybody has it, but I just happened to see that somebody else had it on theirs, and I was like, "What is this?" And I clicked on it, and then then I saw that I could do it for myself too. So like, it's only been 2 days in a row so far, but I have been going.
Right.
I'm like, "What song do I want to feature today?"
Right.
And
Yeah, I think that that's great stuff. I really
yeah,
do. Like, I think that it should be a reflection of who you are, right?
right, right. I agree. All right. Well, so what would be a piece of advice that you would give someone wanting to start their own business, regardless of, if it's hot sauce or if it's a different industry.
Sure, absolutely. If maybe they want to open up a auto shop, I don't know. Uh, whatever it is that you do, commit to it. Man, excuse me. And you're never, it's like having kids, you can only prep so much, but you'll only be ready enough. You know what I mean? Like there's never like a completion date. Like, and that's true for anything. You should continuously like don't ever use an excuse of like, oh, I don't know enough, or you it's called OJT, on the job training. Sometimes you just have to learn in the middle of it. And knowledge is continuous. You're never done with it. Um, Temper your expectations, right? Don't think that you're going to open a company and tomorrow you're making $100 million or something. Like, no, it takes people will overestimate what they could do in 1 year, but they will underestimate what they could do in 10 years.
Right.
So that's a really critical thing too, is temper your expectations to like realistic goals. So hardworking or disciplined mindset. Hard work will beat talent when talent refuses to work hard, right? You need to be disciplined. You need to have temper your expectations. You need to understand that, you're only going to be ready to an extent, or like have enough knowledge to a certain extent. Everything else will just kind of come later. I don't know if these are good advice tips,
No,
but
I love them. And the one that you said about like, expectations for 1 year versus 10 year, like
yes,
I've
yeah,
never heard that, but that's
yeah.
there's so much
Think
truth.
about it. Think about it like a great example for me, and I have this because I write in a journal. I have a journal that my wife got me maybe 6 years ago. I'm like, I'm gonna write in it every day, every week, whatever, every month. I probably average twice a year, and I hate it. Uh, but from the time that she first gave it to me, it was like, okay, this year I'm gonna lose weight. This year I'm gonna start working out, and I'm gonna, grand expectations and plans for what. Think about it, and I bring that up for like New Year's. We always have these New Year resolutions where I think the timeline that we put is like, it's going to happen this year. We're going to do it this year. We're going to stop drinking. We're going to stop smoking. We're going to lose weight. We're going to have better relationships. We're going to, like whatever it is. But we always put it in a 1 year timeline, and we almost never reach it because we overestimate what we can do in that year.
Right.
We think we could do all these things and we can't, but we never say, I'm going to do this in 10 years, right?
Yeah.
That's the issue. And when you're talking about like venture capital firms, right? Or, these big equity investors, they're always looking at a 10-year plan, right? Because they've understood it. They know I'm going to invest in 7 companies, and the aim's in 10 years, 2 of them are going to be incredibly profitable, cover my losses for the other 5, and still make money.
Yeah.
So you
Very
should always think about the long game. Think about long term.
That's great advice. So what are you most excited about right now for Mach 1?
More people trying it, getting access to a large distributor or chain store, because that's going to, for me, like just business talk shop for a second, it'll smooth out a lot of volatility for orders where I think for a large chain or distribution, they're able to say, hey, look, we have, you know, 10 stores, or we have 30 different stores that we supply. We're going to need to buy X amount of bottles, and we're probably going to need to buy X amount of bottles every month. So there's a little bit more of um, like continuity between months, or you could make predictions on averages of orders for a large customer like that. That would be incredibly beneficial for yes, like the balance sheet, but also for a good metric for like our hot sauce is growing in market share of like we're obviously getting access to more stores and more people can see it, more people can try it. Um, that's a pretty exciting kind of thing is because I feel like we're really approaching that. We're in about 30 locations. Um, yeah, we're in 33 locations right now, but that's basically Napa Valley, like Northern Bay Area. So North San Francisco, north is, San Francisco's 20 miles away, but we haven't even gone south of Berkeley, right? We're only in two places. So um to make a really long answer short, I'm most excited about new horizons. I'm most excited about new opportunities that still exist. Like basically, we're still in a growth phase, very much so, where there's so many like untapped resources that is super exciting to have the conversations with, for people to try it, and for more people to say like, oh, I've had that hot sauce. Like that is another huge like kick rush. I'm talking to people at like my daughter's soccer game, and they'll say, "What do you do?" And I say, "Oh, I sell hot sauce." And they'll say like, "Oh, what kind of hot sauce?" And I say, "It's called Mach 1." It doesn't happen often. It's only happened twice, but they'll be like, "Oh, I have that hot sauce like in my fridge, or I've tried it, or I've heard about it." And you're like, "Yeah, you
That's
know,
awesome.
yeah, that's a great feeling right there for sure." Yeah.
And
So
you sell
those
through, you do sell through
on
Walmart.com and also
Yeah.
website.
So we correct. So we do have you can find us on Walmart Marketplace, which is fantastic, but you do need to search for it there. Or you could go to our website, mach1hotsauce.com, and we have all of our three hot sauces. We have shirts, like we have some swag, that kind of stuff. But our website for sure, absolutely.
And so where do
Like
you
if
wh- oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, like, for you, for instance, you live in Virginia. We don't sell our hot sauce in Virginia. In order for you to get it right now, if you were in Virginia, it was, you'd have to order it. And we do like 2-day shipping, but
Yeah.
there's no store, unfortunately, right now. But give it, 10 years for sure.
Which the packaging, I have to say, was, you always wonder when you're ordering something that has liquid in it if it's gonna come
Yeah.
through okay, especially like
Yeah.
I have dogs that are constantly barking at the delivery guys. So I know
Yeah.
seen on the video that they're like throwing things onto my porch.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and I can't recall if your package was thrown or not, but um, you know, the packaging was great. Like there was, and it was solid. Like there was no way that anything was gonna happen to that.
Yeah. That's
Love.
great.
Um,
That's fantastic feedback. Thank you.
the box was like solid. I'm like, this is a good box. Like I, because there were two in there too. You sometimes wonder
Yes.
that, but you got the wrapping around there, and it was solid, and yeah, so that's always a good thing too.
Thank you. That's great.
So where do you see Mach 1 in the next year? I know we talked
In
about
yeah, in the next year, I honestly, hopefully, knocking on wood here, I honestly think Mach 1 will be at least a Northern Bay Area or Northern California hot sauce brand at that point, where we're really starting to move into larger chain stores or distribution networks within California. That's in 1 year. Um, Overestimating what I could do in a year, maybe California, um, in total, Southern California, San Diego, Carlsbad, Los Angeles. I don't know. That would be great, but I need to temper expectations. That's a big push. And then even if, let's say, you have access logistically, can it be accomplished? Like, I'm not in a position. I mean, those are some high startup costs that are going to be incurred. You need to talk about warehousing at that point, or you need to have an entire, like what's called a 3PL, like a third party logistics, where you're getting the hot sauce made and produced and then shipped over to them, and then they're taking care of the rest. Like, that's a pretty big operation. Do I feel like when the opportunity arises, I could step up to the plate? Like 100%. But I just don't think that that's something that would be feasible without, a lot of late nights and some serious strategy kind of done. So, California though, at least focus on, you should always, every product and service, whatever it is, you should always be able to sell in your own backyard first. And that would be a metric for saying, if I could sell it here, one would assume I'd be able to sell it in other places. Like maybe whatever your product or service is region specific to an extent. I get that. Some things are going to be kind of like geo locked for a reason because the culture, provides that, or the culture supports this. Um, but for something like hot sauce, which is, a commodity, you should be able to sell in your own backyard first. It shouldn't be like I can only sell it in Thailand or something like that. Like, you're never going to make it in the long run then.
Yeah. And then how about in 5 years? Where would you like to be in 5 years?
5 years, I'd love for it. I think 5 years, honestly, 5 years, it could be a national brand, 100%. I think in 5 years, we could get access to distributors or large chains like Kroger. So we don't have a Kroger here in California, right?
Yeah.
Get access to like a Kroger network on the East Coast.
You should also check out HEB. HEB is pretty awesome. That's a
All
Texas.
right.
HEB by far, I hate to say it. Like I've gone to a lot of grocery stores, and while I like my Wegmans and I like my Publix and I like my Kroger, HEB, like, oh, when I they have so many things. And when I go to visit my mom, I'll go there. The first time I will never forget the first time that I had come back from we had been stationed in Japan for a really long time. And I know
Very
this is
nice.
some semi-racist, but it was not racist in a negative thing. So
Yeah.
they have like a sushi making station where it's like just this guy in the center of like all these counters, and he's making sushi, and I'm just like, I just wanted to find a Japanese friend so bad because like I had lived there for 7 years and I was
Yeah.
like, just waiting, just waiting. But like, I mean,
Yeah.
store has everything, like everything. And I know like there's a couple of veteran companies that I've talked to, not on the VOB. This is prior to that, but they've been able to sell their items, not hot sauces. It was more like cooking sauces, but check them out as well. HEB is a great
I
store.
will. What
Um,
part of Japan did you live in?
Yokosuka, so
Ooh,
just south of Tokyo. Maybe it was like a 50-minute train ride,
nice.
but
Do you ever miss it?
I miss it all the time. I have friends still there. I still
What was your favorite food or favorite destination or
so Osaka was really cool.
Osaka?
There's a lot of Osaka, Kyoto. There's a lot of history there, but even like honestly, just where we were, Sankian Gardens, is they had taken a whole bunch of buildings from, I don't know how old they were. They were super old, but they just put them in this garden, including like there was an old tea house that a lot of the buildings are closed most of the year. This tea house, they hadn't opened it in I think 10 years. And I just happened to be at that garden walking around that day. And
Right.
they're like, hey, do you want to do the formal tea in the or traditional tea in the tea house? And I was like, yeah. So and it was really interesting to go in there. They had like a rack, and you had
Mhm.
that this is where all the samurais would leave their weapons. Nobody was allowed to have
Yes,
weapons. And the door was like a dog door, and everybody
really.
had to crawl into the tea house. And it was explained that the reason why that is because that nobody was above anybody else. Nobody was taller than anybody else. Nobody, like everybody just came in as even and equal.
Huh. That's
And
super interesting.
yeah, so the lady had said something about like, I mean, sometimes they would have like discussions from opposing houses,
Mhm.
whatever.
Yeah, is this like during feudalism? Like
I
Japan's
think
feudalism?
so.
Yeah.
So, but it was really cool to be able to go in there. And so you're just kind of crawling around. I mean, once you're in there, you could stand up, but like the and I don't know if it had to do with like the size of people back then or what, but the ceiling level was a little bit low, the doorways
Yeah.
were pretty low, so everybody's like bowing.
Yeah.
You're going through the different rooms, and then
Yeah.
yeah, I did learn that day that my knees are not very strong. Kneeling on the floor while you're accepting tea and the proper way to accept things. I was like, oh, my knees are not good.
No.
But I mean, the history of just Japan, like anywhere you go in Japan, the history there is just incredible. But of course, like the Tokyo area, you've got pop-up shops of, you know, one day there was a pop-up shop for, I think it was like a drink station, and it had like the little glow cube in it. And I didn't realize like it was opened for some Japanese like boy band, and I was standing just kind of to the side, and like they were right next to me, and all these girls were like in a line like over there, and nobody had asked
Mm.
me to move or anything. So I'm like, I don't know who these people are. I mean, I'm not, it's not the kind, like, I listen to the music, but I'm not like young or very much aware of who these people are. But I guess I was
Right.
next to some famous people because all these girls like kept taking pictures and
Right.
trying to get out of the way, but like there's no room over here. So I'm like, I just got
Right.
a weird situation. But no, just oh, Japan is just amazing. The people are amazing. Yeah, I miss it. I miss it every day. Um,
Yeah.
but Korea too. We had the opportunity to live in Korea for a little over a year. Love the people,
Yeah.
love the food. Um,
Yeah.
Japanese food isn't very spicy. But Korean food is. So
Is it?
yeah.
You Korea to me, obviously South Korea. South Korea, there's one thing that and I love to debate anybody with this is the one thing that scares me about that is I think that it is like hyper um capitalism. It's basically capitalism that has been untested or ungoverned, and it puts that country and the people in a position where it's like either you work for Samsung, right? Or Hyundai, right? Or you got nothing, right? Because they own how much of the GDP for South Korea is by those like that car company or that or LG is another one, right?
Yeah.
Because they have their own universities. Like Samsung has their own university that these kids are trying incredibly hard to get into, like the equivalent of our Stanford or our Yale or Harvard or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Um, that's just me talking out loud. That's a discussion for another day. But they really invested in infrastructure and they really invest. And I agree, the culture and the people are very close knit. They really rely on each other. They have conscription for obvious reasons because of North Korea. Yeah, it's a conundrum over there for sure.
Yeah.
But
It's pretty neat. We actually owned a Samsung car when we were stationed there.
really,
Yeah, I can't remember what it was called, but it was a company. It wasn't called Samsung. Um,
right, right. But it was made by Samsung.
yeah, made by Samsung.
Yeah.
It was a really nice car,
Dang.
very nice car. Yeah, it's interesting over there. But you're right. I feel like almost everybody that I knew, I mean, there were some exceptions. Like we
Yeah.
doctor that had his own hospital. Um, he was very big in supporting our military. Because
Yeah.
he was there
Oh,
for the Korean War. He was a little kid, and
no
his
kidding.
family were rescued by American soldiers, and he started this group that. Well, we'll talk about this later. We're gonna
Yeah, yeah.
off topic. But so So I guess just kind of wrapping up. So how can fellow veterans best support you?
Um, Best supporting me, two things, three things. Go online, buy a bottle, buy two, buy all three, right? Buy the bundle, buy a t-shirt. I'm happy to mail it today, kind of thing. Um, Two, if you know a place, if you're like, oh, my friend is the owner, or I know so and so of this grocery store, or I know a place that would love to um carry it, send me an email and I'll reach out to that company or whatever, because it's all about getting exposure. It's all about getting the brand out there and opening. In order to meet that 5-year goal, I need to open a place in Montana as much as I need to open a place in Louisiana, right? Like I need
Okay.
to get as many places as possible. And The third one would be just to, yeah, talk about it. Have you tried Mach 1 hot sauce, or tell your friends. That's it. It really is that simple. I mean, we don't need to complicate it. Support the brand, buy the brand, talk about the brand, and if you know anybody who wants to try it, tell them to try it.
Awesome. And the question that I told you everybody kind of freezes on. Not everybody.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
give us your pitch.
My pitch. Let's see. If you enjoy hot sauce, and you've always kind of been wondering, like, is there anything else out there that has more balanced flavor or heat? Then I think Mach 1 hot sauce really is for you. We really care about product pairing. We really care about flavor. We wanted to create unique label design and name, and a hot sauce that has like just this perfect like balance and um, unique design and flavor that can pair with your food and elevate it rather than overpower it or ruin it. And Yeah, that's Mach 1,
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your story.
of course. Thank you for having me, Cindy.